Good evening and welcome to the Detroit Metro Plug podcast where connections matter. I'm your host, Charles McKay, and we have a special podcast event tonight, a special roundtable discussion dealing with the harsh truth of the vaping epidemic. And so we have a panel of experts who have knowledge and research based on preventive methods to help teens who are facing this epidemic. So, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining live with us. For those who are watching us live on YouTube or watching us live on LinkedIn or our Facebook page, Detroit Metro Plug Podcast. So, happy Sunday to everyone. If you're watching right now, I want to encourage you, if you're on our Detroit Metro Plug Podcast Facebook page, please like and share with your friends, family, and associates. We're dealing with some serious information, and you want to share this with your friends because this vaping epidemic is a very serious matter. So please like, share, and notify friends and family. So before we go into our topic, to kind of set the tone of our roundtable, I'm going to share two video clips that kind of talks about this vaping epidemic crisis that's happening in our country. The first clip is by the ABC Nightline News. A young lady, 18 years old, she suffered a severe injury from vaping. And then the next clip is a local news, Channel 4, former chief medical examiner, Dr. J. Calhoun. She testified before Congress back in 2019 about the vaping epidemic in Michigan. So we're going to show both of those clips and we're going to go right into our discussion this evening.
You hid your vape underneath your pillows.
Yeah.
And you would come and smoke how often?
Oh, I couldn't go longer than like 10, 15 minutes without hitting it. It was so addicting. I brought it with me everywhere I went.
Seema Herman never expected that what she thought was a harmless habit, vaping, would end up nearly killing her.
It took 2 days for my lungs to fail and I almost died.
The 18-year-old going viral with this photo from her hospital bed, a tube still pumping oxygen to her failing lungs. In her hands, a call to action.
Asked for like a pen and paper because that was the only way I could communicate. And I wrote, I want to start a no vaping campaign. That was the first thing I did when I opened my eyes.
Seema's story is just the latest in a landslide of incidents linked to vaping, sparking what many officials are calling a national health crisis.
What we've seen in the course of the past, let's say, month, is an increased number of people coming in with respiratory problems as a result of
In Good
vaping.
Health tonight, the number of vaping-related injuries and deaths are growing.
That's right. Today, the CDC announced there are now 805 confirmed and probable cases of lung injuries associated with e-cigarettes. That includes 12 deaths in 10 states. One of Michigan's top health officials, Dr. Jonay Calhoun, testified before a congressional hearing on vaping. Our Dr. Frank McGeorge watched the testimony and knows Dr. Calhoun very well. He is in the newsroom with the latest.
She's actually a colleague of mine in the emergency department at Henry Ford Hospital. But more importantly, she is the state's chief medical executive, and she provided specifics to Congress on how vaping-related lung injuries have affected people in our state.
So we in Michigan have had over 44 cases that have been reported to the health department. 15 of those are confirmed or probable cases.
Dr. Jonay Calhoun testified before a congressional subcommittee talking about the steps Michigan has already taken to curb the growing epidemic.
I mean, we saw across the country a 900% increase in students who are using vaping products between 2011 and 2015, so it started a little bit earlier. I do know that there are youth in the state of Michigan who don't even know what's in these products. They've been marketed to.
While both the CDC and FDA echoed the sentiment,
and we absolutely share the concern about youth, that no youth should be using e-cigarettes.
We do not consider these products safe. We think they have harm. We do not think really anyone should be using them other than people who are using them in place of combustible tobacco.
more needs to be done.
I'm pleased that the FDA and CDC are providing support to our state and local governments. But I think collectively as a society, we probably could have done more.
Now, e-cigarettes and vaping are a serious public health problem, whether you're looking at the number of young users, the development of nicotine addiction, the unknown harm of heated vapor, or the growing number of lung injuries, this is an area that needs attention.
Yeah, all right. Keyword there, unknown.
I know, it is frightening.
Absolutely.
All right. So very great information. And just to kind of highlight and set the tone of our discussion tonight. So let's go into our panel discussion here. We want to welcome to the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, this special panel, the harsh truth of the vaping epidemic. And to lead off our panel, and she's kind of going to help us facilitate and sort of the co-host of this topic tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our panelists and guests. Ms. Shanice Johnson. She is the program coordinator and the health and wellness school-based program lead with the Michigan uh, the Black Caucus of Michigan Foundation, Detroit, the drug-free youth in Detroit. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Miss Shanice Johnson.
Thank you so much for having us, Charles. And it is truly a pleasure to be here and have all of the guests that are in our stakeholders and our community leaders and everyone that's here and part of our advisory board. So we're a coalition. And so I want to explain to everyone out there what a coalition is made up of. We're the Drug Free Youth in Detroit Coalition, which is an initiative under the Black Caucus Foundation of Michigan. We are here in an effort to prevent substance use, bring mental health awareness, put things into perspective in regards to mental health awareness and the epidemics that's currently facing our youth. What we have decided to do, because again, February is Heart Awareness Month, and one of the things about heart disease that causes that is actually the use of tobacco and smoking. We have an expert respiratory therapist, Ms. Taylor Ward is here. We have Dr. Angela May Scott here as our psychologist, which will give us the background and mental health perspective in regards to why people choose to use substances. We also have Raquel Ward, who is a licensed addiction specialist and licensed clinical addiction specialist and a licensed clinical social worker who joins both of those together, the why, what's going on, and why they're doing it. We have Edgar Pratt, who has come on board as one of the biggest school districts that we have our Navigation to Success program in Detroit Public School Community District. And he serves as the Dean of Culture. And so we have a lot of great information from him. And then right there with boots on the ground in the operating room is Monica Ward, a surgical technician, who's going to give us a wealth of information, some kind of visuals that's going to tell us about what's going on with the vaping. Kevin Bryan is our Black Family Development. He's a certified prevention specialist. Sean Grant is a special education regional manager. Ratanji Kendrick Bailey is on the line from Hezekiah Kids, and they're coming on in regards to our special needs population, our special education population that are kind of tricked into using substances. And then we have two of our youth advisors. We are so honored and excited to have two of our youth advisors on the advisory board, Elizabeth Grant and Hezekiah Bailey, on the line as well. So what do we talk about a coalition? We have 12 sectors. I just explained what those sectors were. 12 sectors that come together for a cause. And one of the things when we have a coalition, we have providers. We have state providers. And that state provider backs us 110%. They come on board with the funds to help us do things like this, or funds to go out into the community. And I'm so honored and grateful that our substance use innovative prevention manager, Ms. Thomas, is on the line with us. And it takes that she's so busy in the community in the state of Michigan. So to be on tonight, I am so grateful to her to be part of this roundtable. And so we know that as stakeholders in the community, we had to first figure out what the problem was. And we did a community assessment. And we found out, based on input from all of the advisory board or going out into the field, what is going on. As you saw in the local news and in the national news, it is truly an epidemic. And so we are going to just have what we call a round table. It's like what a family talk. And we're going to just talk and give you what you need to know. And we're going to start first with, again, our licensed clinical addiction specialist, licensed clinical social worker, Ms. Ward, Raquel Ward, who's going to kind of tell us about the trends and what's going on. If I could bring you on right now, thank you so much.
Give thanks, and greetings to everyone who are on the panel and the discussion, but also who are watching live and who will watch this as the recording that it shall be. So give thanks. I am Raquel Ward. I am a licensed clinical addiction specialist, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. I hail from the 2002 Masters of Social Work class of Wayne State University. So this is truly a full circle moment for me. While I was in grad school, I also worked at Black Family Development as a tobacco prevention specialist, teaching the Not American Lung Association Not on Tobacco campaign. So this is truly full circle. So I give thanks. I give thanks to my ancestors who brought me here. So thank you all. So basically, we're talking about tobacco and tobacco-related disorders. Per our diagnosing and statistical manual, tobacco-related disorders fall under tobacco use disorder, and it encompasses all of tobacco. So usually when we think about the tobacco use disorders, we think about our cigarettes. Our cigarettes. My maternal grandmother, this is her cigarettes. I grew up watching her smoke these. We think of cigarettes. We think of cigars. I went to Cuba. I got a cigar, y'all. We think of cigars. We usually think of those, but what we're talking about today, now that tobacco, tobacco and nicotine is in that same tobacco use disorder. Those numbers are on a decline. Most people don't start smoking after 21. So you don't find someone that's 25 and all of a sudden they pick up smoking. That's very, very rare. But what we see an increase in, so our cigarettes, we see a decline in those tobacco usages, but we see an increase, significant increase, especially in our youth, of the electronic devices. So the technical name of the electronic devices are the electronic nicotine delivery system. I think that is so very apropos because the acronym is ENDS, ENDS. And you will hear from Monica Ward and Taylor Ward about the end that some people are experiencing, especially our youth. So ENDS, electronic nicotine delivery systems, those can include e-cigarettes, vapes, mods, e-pens, e-cigars, e-hookahs, e-cigars as well. So those are all considered in a tobacco use disorder as far as nicotine. So I even have an example of lovely cartridge. One stick, lovely cartridge. It's Leche Licious. Isn't it beautiful? Purple, color of royalty. It smells good too. So this is an example of an e device, and then you just put this little top on it, and then you vape it, right? Also, this is kind of, you can get some cartridges. This is how it comes. Not trying to promote any product because we ain't promoting. We're trying to say don't use it. As you can see, it has a warning on it. And the warning says this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. It also has on here, warning. This product can expose you to chemicals, which are known in the state of California to cause cancer. And nicotine, which is known to the state of California to cause birth defects and other reproductive harm. For more information, I'm in North Carolina, but this is saying the state of California. So we will hear. So I don't want to step out of my lane. We have a lot of.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to step out of my lane and talk about the medical aspect of it because that is not my lane. We have people that is their lane. So I want to just briefly talk about some of the trends that we are seeing. Some of the trends that we are seeing in our youth is why is it so popular? Why is this happening? The worldwide, the sales for vaping headed to $4 billion in 2023.
Wow.
It's a money grab, y'all. They getting money. Okay. They're getting money. So
let me tell
40,
you this, Raquel. Let's even go far back. That's in 2023. And the touch base is vaping, actually e-cigarettes came around in 2003.
Yeah.
They came to America, being sold in the market in America in 2006. And then it was not declared until 2018 a youth epidemic. And when you talked about those cigarettes, you talked about the chemicals, it's like 4,800 chemicals that are inside of these things that these kids are, these youth are putting in their bodies.
Mm-hmm. And statistically, we know in 2023, 1 in 20 Americans vape. But the youth e-cigarette, the ends, remember the ends has increased by 1,800%. That's our children. That's our children. And so we asked, what is going on? Like, what is going on? The largest market for vaping is the US, the UK, and Japan. I love research, y'all. So I was like, I want to understand why. Like, makes a lot of sense. With some countries, they don't do it. It makes a lot of sense. But I won't go there. I get on soapboxes sometimes. Okay. 8% of Americans report using vaping products in the past week. Most of the e-cigarettes and vaping are children. And so we asked them, why? Why around 61% of the teens who vape do it to experiment. So they're experimenting. They're like, oh, that's cute. Let me see. Oh, that smells good. Oh, that's good. Let me see that. So to experiment, 42% because they like the taste. So 42% because they like how it's flavored. What is Leche-licious? It's flavored. So they like the taste. And I think Shanice, you had a statistic about the flavors.
Well, there's 7,700 different types of e-liquids out there. But here's the catch. The flavoring is food safe. So you know how we always we may see something, we see the good and then we overlook the bad. The bad is saying the flavoring is good, but the bad is this is nicotine, which can cause cancer. And when we talk about heart disease and lung cancer, that is one of the most preventable deaths that we can have because we make a choice to do it. We make a choice. And that's when, if I can, Raquel, can I jump back to you with Dr. May? When we talk about making those choices. And Dr. May is a psychologist, but she also comes to us as part of our coalition using the arts and music as a therapeutic form, as a stress reliever, and kind of as a diversion from doing other things. So Dr. May, when we say, why are they doing it? All the large numbers that Raquel just gave us, can you give us some, as far as mental well-being, why are they doing it?
Absolutely. As Ms. Johnson said, I am in the field of psychology, excuse me, and music and the arts. So psychologically speaking, and this won't be a surprise to people who are familiar. You've heard news stories, you've heard reports about people, or you may know people in your life who may be suffering from some kind of addiction, be it alcohol, gambling, it doesn't, whatever kind of addiction. There are certain things that go on in the brain that are similar across the board. And that includes with what we're talking about today, which is vaping. One of the reasons from a neuropsychological perspective that it's so addictive for children, for anyone, but for our youth, is because it mimics some of the neurotransmitters in the brain. So neurotransmitters are chemicals in our brain that are designed to send impulses. If you're going to lift your arm, your brain has to send an impulse, right, to your muscles, so that they do that. So all of our behaviors, our emotions, everything that you can think of that has to do with how we move and think and emote in the world are connected to, well, most of them are connected to neurotransmitters and those connections in the brain. So what happens with nicotine addiction, including vaping, is that it aligns with those neurons in our brain, and it imitates the natural neurotransmitters in our brain, so that it literally tricks the brain and body into thinking that, oh, this is supposed to be here. So it over time alters the brain. So what happens when that happens? What happens is, same with any other kind of addiction. It hits the pleasure centers of the brain, and it makes you feel good. So with kids, this not only smells great, like was mentioned, and tastes good, but it makes me feel good. Why does it feel good? It's impacting the dopamine in our brains, and other chemicals. So there's a combination of the psychological influence of peer pressure, seeing other people doing it, wanting to experiment, all of those things. That's the behavioral aspects of picking that up and making that choice. And then there's the chemical neurological aspect that then takes that, when it gets into the body, it goes into those brain centers, and then they start getting addicted on literally on a physical level. And when that happens, there are several things that are impacted. Impulsivity. Research has shown that people who are vaping, young people who are addicted to nicotine products, they are more likely to have impulsivity problems. What does that mean? When we talk about being impulsive, what do we normally think of? Oh, I just did it on impulse. Oh, I wasn't thinking. I just, I just went and said, or I went and did. So there's an increase in impulsivity, meaning kids are more likely to do things without thinking, having less control over those behaviors, over being able to sit and concentrate and be very directive and purposeful in their movements, their statements, all of those things. So there's an increase in impulsivity, increase in mood disorders. That means greater chance of anxiety, greater chance of depression. We know our kids are inundated with so many things in this day and age. The last thing we want to do is add to the likelihood that they may be anxious, feeling depressed, and other mood disorders. And we know, unfortunately, that suicidology kind of can go hand in hand with that. So I just want to bring in the artistic piece. I'm a professional musician, I'm a vocalist, and I perform. So there are wonderful psychologists who do music therapy. I don't incorporate music therapy. The music part is for the performance, but I am a music educator. And I do know that research has, and I've seen, and research also shows that children who are involved in the arts have a higher sense of self-esteem, self-confidence. And how does that help in this conversation? They're more armed. They have greater tools to say no to some of that peer pressure when they're involved in things that are building their self-esteem, and they're less likely to say, I want to do that to belong because I'm doing dance to belong, or I'm doing the arts, so I'm involved in those other things. So it definitely goes hand in hand.
So I'm going to bring on, thank you, Dr. May. I'm going to bring on Elizabeth Grant. Elizabeth is an 11th grader in our Rochester Hills School District. And she's going to tell us a few things about what has been going on in her school after she's said to them, I'm on a drug-free coalition. I'm on the youth advisory board, and she's very proud to be on the youth advisory board. So tell us, you heard some of that, Elizabeth, about the peer pressure and things that are going on in the schools. Can you give us a little something? And then Hezekiah, you can be next.
Yep. Peer pressure can make people do a lot of things. They try to fit in to avoid bullying, and sometimes they had stuff going on at home. You never know. But I do have a couple stories I can share. I'm not going to name any names nor the place and where it happened. But I do have some stories that I have about things I've heard about other people and vaping.
What happened with your classmate?
He's my classmate, one of my closest friends actually. He was a couple weeks ago. He was caught vaping. He was suspended for a week because of it. He hasn't shown any signs of addiction and has not used since. Luckily, but just know how close that could have been. It could have been a downward spiral for him. He's honestly one of the lucky ones. I do have a story of someone who wasn't, however, so lucky. And this happened in middle school, a guy who used to be my classmate as well. He started texting us, telling us that he had started underage vaping. And he kept on bragging about it to us. I tried to get him some help. Nothing worked. He's still vaping to this day, as far as we know. He did become addicted, and it caused us, stop talking altogether. It made his behavior go into a downward spiral. It caused him to, of course, be more impulsive, more aggressive, and made him avoid doing schoolwork a lot more as well. He completely changed from what he was before. Before he was a top student, then after he started, it just went downhill for him. He do not speak anymore. So I don't really know much more about this or anything, but I do suspect that he is still vaping to this day. And I'm sad that he's now in that reality. I wish I could have done more to help him, but in the end, it was his choice, and he's paying for it.
Well, you are doing something to help them because you joined the coalition and you're part of our youth advisory board. And just this coming on to Facebook and YouTube, you're making a difference. And I'm very proud of you for that. And thank you for being part of our team. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And Hezekiah, did you want to talk about the vaping or anything that's going on in your school? Why you're doing it?
Vaping is not good. I'm not gonna do it. It's not good for your health. I encourage people not to do it because it's unhealthy.
Good job. Thank you for sharing that. And since we're talking about schools, we have some school officials on here. I too have been a 20-something year educator, having experienced those bylaws and those student handbooks. And so I'm going to bring Mr. Edgar Pratt on as the Dean of Culture. So what's the procedure if these kids, like Elizabeth mentioned, they were suspended for 1 week? What's usually the procedure, and how is it handled, with you in your position? You're on mute. Okay.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's handled. First, we have to consider set factors when it comes to suspension and expulsion of students. But we also have to look at the demographics in which we're dealing with. As we was driving, I had my wife do some more research just to find out that 3.8 million middle school and high school students are vaping across the United States. So not just vaping being an issue, it causes other behavioral issues that we have to deal with in our schools. Fighting, insubordination, disruption in the classrooms, not wanting to follow directions. So you have so many other issues that occur from vaping that we have to deal with on a suspension or expulsion level that causes effects in the community. Because when the students are not in school, they're out in the community. And when they're unsupervised, it gives them the opportunity to use more drugs or alcohol without supervision. So we try to prevent it by providing interventions within our school to support these students. Why we have them in school suspension, supporting them with their academics. We have our PBIS providing positive behavior interventions to help support them that can give them alternatives to the behaviors that they're demonstrating that we want to change. We also have clubs that we are incorporated within our PBIS that give the students opportunities to get into positive clubs to help convert that energy into another way. So we are trying several different ways to try to get our students away from the drugs and the vaping and the alcohol. We've also incorporated our navigation to success inside of our school that meets with our students every Thursday. We became unique this year because we noticed last year that our students were more engaging when they were separated by gender. And so we incorporated this year, separating our students by gender to see if that engagement level will still be there and that we can also create more ambassadors for uh, the no drugs and no alcohol campaign that we're pushing throughout the United States and through the Black Caucus.
Thank you for that. And so we do know, I want to put this out for everyone, informational purposes. I learned from Miss Thomas, you got to always inform. And so I want to put it out there. The state of Michigan, or actually the federal government, as of January 2022, increased the age of buying any nicotine or tobacco products to 21. The state of Michigan put that into effect in July of 2022. And so any student that has a vaping device or anything like that, they're actually breaking the law. There's a Youth Tobacco Act law, which is 722.642, which states prohibits conduct by minor for tobacco products, vape products, or alternative nicotine products. Violations and penalties will occur if you're caught with them, and participations in a health promotion and or risk reduction assessment program, cost, community service, exceptions, and other violations. So when you come into the school, and I'm saying this as a prior being, like I said, I was a school administrator and a teacher. If you come into the school with these products, you are breaking the law. You are breaking the law. And this is the statute that's in place in the state of Michigan that says, now we would have Desiree Wolf on. She's part of our the Henry Ford Police Department. But what I would know based on going to some of our councilmen and councilwomen's in our police officers in District 7, what is it, Kevin? Is it 6th precinct, 8th precinct?
Yeah. 6th precinct.
6th precinct. They would tell you, and for everybody to know, information purposes, that if your student is caught with a vape, they're supposed to call the police. And so following those 7 steps, which are in the handbook and written down by the Detroit Public School Community District, they're basing it based off if you have first infraction, second infraction, all those things, but they're supposed to legally call the police. And the police then contact your parent. And then you go to court. And then that's when all those fees and fines and things. Ms. Tara, Ms. Thomas, did you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Good evening, everyone. I definitely know that through our network of providers, they have been making sure to comply with the laws of what you mentioned as far as the 21 age, as well as the legal aspect that you mentioned of those students who are not complying with the misuse or abuse of the vaping. But the further detail and what we've been trying to incorporate or require through the state is to educate and provide those what Ms. Ward, Rachel Ward, even showed earlier about the detrimental side of it, and not just mandating them to go through different trainings through our network, as your organization, along with 9 others that are out with the boots on the ground, making sure that we talk to our schools about various campaigns and the anti-vaping campaigns. So the penalties side of it is more handled through, of course, our law enforcement and through those agencies of what will happen. But our goal here through Detroit Wayne and the SUD prevention department addresses how to see those signs, those anti-vaping signs, and to prevent it before it begins. So there are definitely going into those schools, into the communities, and providing the presentations, as well as knowing what those areas of what to look for, things that were hidden, as we saw in the video earlier, where they place things as we talk around this table about things we need to look for, things that are in plain sight that we could address in our communities about preventing it. And also knowing that there is available educational materials for all of our communities, no matter if you're English speaking, Spanish, or Arabic speaking. So know that those are also areas of information that's available to the communities all across our 43 cities of Wayne County.
Yes. And they say to the American Heart Association says that we should start talking to students, our children, about vaping as early as kindergarten.
5-year-olds is what we've been talking about with all of our addressing for all of the drugs for substance use disorder.
And we have to not only talk about vaping, but we have to talk about peer pressure, as Hezekiah talked about it not being healthy. And then Elizabeth talked about peer pressure. Mr. Pratt talked about peer pressure. And when we talk about that, another thing that we have to say with the parents is that we have to establish a smoke-free home ourselves.
Yes.
You know, I'm just going to keep it real, straight. So we have to establish a smoke-free home. We often say, we think as parents, and I've been guilty of it myself, do as I say. I'm not a smoker or a drinker, but do as I say, not as I do. But actually, it is what you do.
And so, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was going to also add, you mentioned our parents. A lot of times our parents don't realize that their children's brains are still developing, they're still growing. And they make the mistake of treating their kids like mini adults, like they're little adults, and well, Uncle so-and-so does it, they'll be okay. But part of educating, to your point about our parents and understanding that you're actually stunting growth, you're actually changing, minimizing their intellectual capacity, all of those things. So,
and then we have to stop as parents. I was guilty of this too. Is because I said so. Right. So when if they said, "Well, you vape, why are you telling me not to?" And then you say, "Because I said so." Well, actually, you should tell them why you vape and how hard, if you're trying to stop, how hard it was for you to stop, or it is for you to stop. Because then they'd be thinking like, well, wait a minute, I may not want to do that. But if you just because I said so, we should be having those open conversations, but not like you said, you got to be at the certain level to the kid. This is not good for you. It's going to affect your schooling. It's going to affect your brain. And as they get older, and with the Navigation to Success program that Ms. Thomas spoke of and Mr. Pratt spoke of, that is also under the umbrella of the Black Caucus Foundation. And I serve as the school-based lead. So what I do is I train the health and wellness facilitators on what they need to teach. And so they go in and we go from age 6th grade to 12th grade. And we're in several schools throughout the district and even some charter schools where we talk to them candidly about the effects of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other substances. And I want to say for the record, other substances, which is going on the rise as well, is over-the-counter drugs, misusing prescription drugs that they've been prescribed. And so, Mr. Bryant, you want to jump in on that?
Well, just with the advantage that I had, we are able to engage young men in particular at Black Family Development. We actually have one of our core commitments is to improve the life outcomes of young men and boys of color. And based on what all has been discussed this evening is information and education that we really want to pour into our young men and their families, especially their parents. Just knowing that there is an epidemic, knowing the numbers, we do not have to, I guess, how can I put it? We don't have to play with how we engage. Just as you described, Ms. Johnson, we are able to talk to our young men around the city. And what we want to do, we've all talked about the arts, we talk about sports, we talk about being in clubs, about increasing those protective factors that we know that will help our young men and in particular our young boys of color in Detroit avoid the use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So that work is ongoing. We are again working with our young men with our what we call our My Brother's Keeper initiative here in Detroit. So we're able to identify young men throughout the city at specific schools. And even with our school administrators, again, we know that our young men have challenges in graduating from high school and becoming employable. So every step along the way, Ms. Thomas just said also that, young students at age 5, kindergarten, are being suspended from school for lots of things. So I had a young man today in church tell me that, because I asked him and I invited him to be to participate in this and watch this event tonight. He said he would do it. He said himself, our young people are going through a lot. They're experiencing a lot at home. They're experiencing a lot in the community. So one of the things that I always want to lift up is how do we deal with this harsh reality? And one of the things that we always want to lift up is really just improving our relationships and being explicit about doing that. So I think Brother Ecker, he talked about PBIS. I'm a supporter of restorative practices, but ultimately, whatever it is, it's about improving relationships and strengthening connections. And that's with our students. That's also with our parents. That's also with our neighbors. That's with everyone here. So all of this information is information that we share. And every opportunity, the young man, again, he finally said one more thing to me. He said, well, what can young people do? I asked him to just stay involved and keep on listening, keep on studying, and with wherever there's an opportunity. And I thank Elizabeth and Hezekiah because they're here and they're going to continue to do this work. So I'm hopeful, but it is work.
So I'm going to go into the medical aspect of it. And again, just thankful for both Taylor Ward and Monica Ward for taking time out of their evening to come on and give us the medical perspective. I remember just this past week we were talking, and I was talking in a meeting, and we were saying that the epidemic, the national epidemic, came about in 2018. And Monica Ward gave us some statistics of what she had been seeing prior to that. So Monica Ward, can you come on board and give us some of that information? Thank you for being here.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I want to talk strictly from a surgical standpoint with this vaping epidemic. You gave some dates, some specific dates, Shanice, about when when vaping became an epidemic. What year was that?
2018.
2018. Well, in 2016 and 2017 at Henry Ford, we were doing lung transplants on children already. So these children were coming in large numbers, and we were baffled, mind blown that we were doing lung transplants on teenagers. And it all tied into the epidemic, to the vaping epidemic, but we didn't know in the operating room what was going on. So strictly from the operating room, because vaping and how it damages the body, specifically the lungs, it literally takes your lungs and shuts it off. You're not breathing through that lung anymore. There is no rehabilitation of the lung. There's no cure for it once your lungs are damaged from vaping. There is no cure. I am the end result. I am the end to the ends. We are coming for the lung at that point. We're taking the lungs and giving you a lung transplant. So I was reading up on this, and it was saying some of these children were saying, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I didn't think it was harmful. Everybody's doing it. It didn't bother me. I didn't notice anything wrong. The thing about vaping is you won't until you need a lung transplant, until you're in the hospital for 40 days. There is no oncoming of these symptoms. It just hits you, and it takes you to such a serious state that you have to be hospitalized or have a lung transplant. And even if it does not get to the state of a transplant, you develop all of these symptoms in your body that are not treatable. One of them is called popcorn lung, and that is where your lungs literally looks like popcorn. Your lung literally looks like you have taken a bunch of popcorn, stuffed it down your mouth, and packed it into your lungs. There is no room for breath. There is no room for inflating and deflating of that lung anymore. So this is the things that children don't understand, and they won't, because nobody's explaining it to them until, I'm sure they are now, but you know what I'm saying? They have no idea. They think it's just a fad. Like, we're all sitting on TikTok, we're all on Facebook, and we all vape. And they don't understand the damages that's being caused because they don't feel anything. They don't feel any damages. It's not like smoking a cigarette. It's not like the everyday things that we talk about. Alcohol, you can become an alcoholic. Nicotine, you can get lung cancer. Well, vaping, there are the symptoms, they don't feel them and see them until we are in the operating room, because these children are not being able to take a breath. So from my aspect, I am the end to the ends. And that's something that I never want to see again. I never want to see a child, a teenager, getting a double lung transplant after being in the hospital for 40 days because you can't breathe. On the 40th day, have to have both of your lungs transplanted. And by the grace of God, they were able to find lungs for these children. They were able to find lungs before they passed. And I do know that some children have passed away from it. And the ones that did get a lung, it is just by the grace of God that they were able to find lungs for these children. Because for you to get a lung, that means someone else had to pass away.
Right. And that brings us to Ms. Taylor Ward, who actually does a lot of work with before it gets to the end.
Right.
So can you please explain what you do?
So being a respiratory therapist, I see all kind of things. And with the vaping, I have taken care of the double lung transplants before and after the transplant. I've taken care of a 17-year-old that actually in Michigan that actually became one of those kids that were on a no vaping campaign from his experience. So I want to highlight a new identified condition called e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury, or EVALI. The treatment of this, like you've heard, is still unknown. The sad part about it is the causes are still unknown, because like Shanice and the video and everything like that mentions, there's so many different additives in these products. So it can contain not only nicotine, it can contain THC, even heavy metals like tin, nickel. And when those things get to your lungs, you get the EVALI. So the EVALI is an acute respiratory illness characterized by a broad spectrum of findings that mimics different pulmonary diseases. So it's not something that we will look at and know that it's from vaping because it looks like so many different things that's caused by bacteria, viruses, or even a harsh chemical or such. I know when I did my research, one of the things that we were pretty sure was causing, it can't be the main thing because it's other things that can't be ruled out because it's so many additives. It's a vitamin E acetate that was being found in the biopsies of the lungs because they were taking tissue from the lung, whether the patient was deceased or alive. You can still take a sample, and they were testing them for the products that were being found in the e-cigarettes and that were being found in the lungs. In these things, in the studies and everything like that, these kids were ending up with pneumonia, alveolar damage, which is the lobes of your lungs were being damaged. Most of the things were starting off as an inflammation, similar like how our skin gets red and puffy if we're allergic to something. That's what is happening inside of our lungs. The pneumonia, your lung, with it being inflamed, it can start to fill with pus or fluid, which can cause your oxygenation to lower. The oxygen that we breathe in goes to our entire body, our brain, every limb, every organ. So when we're lacking that oxygen, needless to say, our body gets weaker. We can't breathe. We're short of breath. We're coughing, right? So in one of the studies that had 98 patients in it, 79% of them were men with a median age of 21 years old. So median, I don't know if viewers know this, but that means the average age is 21. That's the age in which they just raised the legal use, which means quite a bit of users were younger than 21. So in these studies, some of the young, adolescents are ending up on life support or something we call ECMO. Life support is usually a ventilator. And that, like we said, that's before we get to the OR to where you need a lung transplant because there's nothing more we can do but give you a new organ if we can find that for you, because we can't determine when somebody dies. And the ECMO is something that they take a catheter, a very large catheter, and stick it into your vein or artery and oxygenate your blood for you. So they pull all of your blood out of your body and they send it back, but they have to oxygenate for you until either your body can recover from the pneumonias or anything like that, or until we can find you organs to where your body can be replaced. And those organs can be replaced and then you can start healing from that. So another thing that I wanted to highlight is the secondhand view of it. Even the exhale vapor, just like the inhale vapors can tear up your lung, even the exhale vapor, similar to cigarettes, hookah, it can be harmful because it is the nicotine. It can be the cancer-causing chemicals, the heavy metals like lead, tin, nickel, because a lot of people don't see it as a big deal and they vape in their home because they think it's just water vapor. And I've heard adults, 30 years old, say these things that they think that it's just water vapor. So children, even though reading is vital, when it says, this contains nicotine or it can contain cancer, can cause cancer. A lot of people think it's just water vapor. So of course the kids think the same. And I did see that 2/3 of Juul users from age 15 to 24 don't even know that these things contain these cartridges or the e-cigarettes or vaping products contains nicotine or these other additives.
Now, can I jump in, Miss Taylor Ward?
Yes,
she mentioned e-cigarettes, and she mentioned a company who's actually fighting with the FDA because they were banned in June of 2022, but then they got an appeal. So we're still battling out because this is a company that targets, one of the big tobacco companies that targets children. Yeah. Their advertisements are targeted towards children. Their flavors are targeted towards children. I always talk about I like candy, and I know that's an addiction too, but stop it. But I can go into the gas station and I'm looking at all the Now Laters and the Mike and Ikes and things like that, and then I turn to the side and the same flavors are in this product. Mm-hmm. So the kids are like, well, if this tastes good, this tastes good. But what they don't put on the product is that one of those little pods is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, let me just say something to that.
Yeah.
Smoking cigarettes can give you cancer over a number of years. Smoking an e-cigarette can take effect on your lungs instantly, the first try. And it can be as early as 3 months that your lungs, and I'm just going to give you guys a visual, a raw steak as in comparison to a well-done steak. The raw steak is a healthy lung, and a well-done steak is a lung that has been smoking a burnt steak, completely burnt, too burnt to eat. 3 months of smoking an e-cigarette, your lungs can be done for.
Yes. And so when we talk about that, I have two experts, Miss Bailey from Hezekiah's Place, and then I have Miss Grant, who's our special ed coordinator, on the line. When we talk about our students that are being targeted or feel the need to belong, can you guys speak on that as well?
I can go ahead and jump in. A lot of times we miss out on our special needs kids because we think those things won't affect them, but they're finding out things to do because they want to be accepted. This is a way to be accepted. So things are not like you were saying. You have the navigation success program in the school, 6th to 12th grade, but sometimes we don't go into those special ed classrooms to explain those things to those kids. So those kids really miss out on it. So that's why we have to really make sure that we're with the parents, talking with the parents, and making sure the parents understand that we have to pay attention to our kids because they get hooked on things because they haven't been told not to do it because we think they won't get into it because they are special needs. So that's something that we really need to look into. And then we really need to educate the parents because I was one of those parents that didn't think vaping was harmful until I did research on it. So it's a matter of educating the parents on to educate their kids and to pay attention to their kids, especially those special needs kids.
So, and I have to piggyback on that. So I am a special education regional manager. I have 10 schools in 3 different states. And a large number of the calls that I get are dealing with our special education scholars that have gotten themselves into trouble because they're making choices based on the peer pressure around them and things like that. And last year, one of my girls in Ohio brought in her vape, charger cord, all of that. And when she got caught, mom's excuse was, it's just her puffer. It's her puffer. Mom's belief was this thing that she's just inhaling steam and it's a puffer and all of us in the household have it. And mom didn't understand. And mom also didn't understand why the police had to be called. Because it's a criminal situation. And this was in 7th grade. This is a 7th grade scholar. And our children are targeted, they're bullied, they're singled out, and they're put under these peer pressure situations. And you heard my daughter state, her classmate, the reason he even had a vape, at the beginning of the year, he did the okay to say call. For students that were in the bathroom vaping, those same students came back to school and bullied him to the point he bought the vape from them to try to fit in, to try not to be bullied for taking action against something that he believed was wrong. Our children are disproportionately identified as special education, and this is where I speak the truth. Our Black males are disproportionately identified for special education services.
Yep.
Our population is underserved and underrepresented in healthcare, and our population is more at risk. So having these conversations, having this brought forth, and educating our parents to the risks that this involves. Our children already have a deficit, and then they're battling this on top of it. It's disheartening. And to see it in 3 different states, and the laws are the same: 21 years of age, police involvement, and restorative justice goes so far, but we're not targeting and addressing the bullying that comes along with trying to push our children into this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with Taylor Ward, and both Monica and Taylor Ward, I mean, excellent, excellent.
Amen.
On just the whole way you mapped it out. I'm a visual learner, and I can see it just by your description. You all should be teachers, but I can see it. I was like, oh my God. But what Taylor was also, if I'm adding on to what you were saying, Taylor Ward, was that there's the secondhand smoke, but we also talk about the third-hand smoke. And can you elaborate a little bit about that and how it affects children as well?
I know you mentioned that in our meeting,
yeah,
the third-hand smoke. When it comes to the chemicals that's released, that is on our clothing, our walls, even our furniture, and then we go and lay a small baby or anything like that on the couch, and those chemicals are embedded in their clothes or their skin, etc., and then they're exposed to it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we have I got everybody. I did it. I want to. If anybody want to say something, if I bring it back to you,
I just want to. There's a comment I want to highlight here from a viewer. They're saying the information that is being displayed on this panel is very important. As an individual who works in the community and talks to a large number of youth, I find this often. So we thank you, viewer George Pate. We thank you for viewing and continue to share this information to help our young people in the state of Michigan.
And so I'm gonna bring it back to Raquel. And then any last words or anything we should do as like I said, a licensed clinical addiction specialist and a licensed clinical social worker. Everybody give me a few last words, and then we'll be.
Give thanks. I want to thank all of the panelists on the podcast. This was wonderful. Thank you to Monica, Taylor, for bringing a true picture of what's going on with our youth. One thing I want to highlight too, when we're talking about educating our youth and we're talking about substance disorders, right? If we go back 3 generations, we can see addiction, right? And so, but addiction doesn't always have to be the same. So educate your youth also about family history,
Yes.
right? Because it may be somebody was an addictive shopper, somebody was a smoker, somebody was on drugs, somebody was, food, somebody was. Teach our children their history.
That's right.
Let them know such and such died from heart disease, such and such died from lungs, such and such. So exactly, Shanice, what you said, it said don't do what I just do what I say, not what as I do. But I'm telling you that this is addiction runs in our family, and this is what is happening. Arm our kids with that information. And what I wanted to end with is when the Surgeon General issued the public health advisory for the epidemic of youth with the ends usage, he said we must take action now, capital NOW, now, to protect the health of our nation's young people. Take action now. Give thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas.
Thank you as well to all of those joining in the panel with us this evening. And thank you for taking the lead on this, Black Caucus Foundation and the Drug Free Youth of Detroit. I do also I want to add that for us here at Detroit Wayne, that we are asking that every person put out the messages, post these things up in your organizations, your churches, your faith organizations. Every sector that is in this coalition should have a sign up to show, like some of our schools across our region that are posting them in the schools. Right outside the bathroom stalls is one of the schools in Livonia. And I'm just mentioning one out of the list of our programs that are here, but also just putting the message out. Show them the visuals that we're talking about tonight, and let them see this before they get involved. Make the mandates. I'm hearing the cry out of parents as well as our communities. We all have the work to do as being the person to carry the torch to hopefully save one person in this work that we're doing. So that is the goal behind our prevention efforts, and there are so many of us across this region that is doing this work. And I want to thank you all. If I didn't say your name or your organization, you do know that Detroit Wayne is supporting you and all that you do as it relates to our prevention, treatment, and recovery services. And do use our 800 line that you see in my background there, which is 1-800-241-4949, to seek any additional services or help that we may be able to help you offer to you through Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, everyone that's on this panel. I appreciate you so much, because everyone can play a part, an important role in protecting our nation's children. And that's what the Drug Free Youth in Detroit Coalition is about. Again, a coalition is members of the community that have their own expertise that come together when they recognize that there is a problem. And we recognize this to be an epidemic. Way before it was categorized as one, you heard Monica Ward say that there's been lung transplants going on way before it was issued that there is an epidemic. And we have to save our students from the risk of being addicted to e-cigarettes. So, Mr. Charles, I'm turning it back over.
Yes, I just want to say thanks for everyone for being on this panel tonight. This platform was created to celebrate difference makers who are doing positive things in the city of Detroit. And I believe you guys should give yourself a hand for the work that you're doing and the information you're putting out. And as we wrap things up, I just want to say thanks again for being on this podcast. You guys shared a wealth of information. I mean, I was even taking notes, especially from the medical perspective. I didn't realize that young kids were having lung transplants due to vaping. And you guys shared things from a clinical social work perspective, the school administration, law enforcement, those teens who we know that it's against the law to bring vaping in the schools. And so you guys showed a wealth of information. As we wrap things up, I just want to ask Ms. Johnson, there's going to be people who are going to view this podcast either live tonight or the replay on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. What would be the call of action if there's a teenager or a parent who has a child or a family member or someone who's struggling with this addiction? What would be their next steps?
Their next step, I would say, would be to talk to them. Talk to them again. The mental and the substance use, they go hand in hand. Why are you doing it? What made you want to do it? And be willing to, if you are doing it as a parent, be willing to get that conversation as well. Well, I'm doing it because you do it. And the call to action is have those talks. Reach out to the professionals in regards to how to prevent it or how to stop it. Find out where they're getting it from, because what that helps people like us in the coalition. If they told you they got it on 2400 Jackson Street and they tell you the gas station in the man's name, there we at the Black Caucus are part of, like Ms. Thomas said, we put the signers out. We put the forms out that says they must be 21. if that person is selling to our minor children, then they're going to be fined. There's things that happen to them in regards to breaking the law. So find that out. I understand this can be a shock or something like that when we face that addiction with our children, but where are you getting it from? Absolutely. And don't try to take it into your own hands. Contact the police so they can help you with it. And my call to action is for any other community members that want to be part of this coalition, the Drug Free Youth in Detroit Coalition. You have our number there, 313-285-9232. We are always out in the community, engaging, informing, and educating people on how to reduce the use of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other substances in our young adults.
Awesome. And lastly, as we close out, those who are watching and who are passionate about what you're doing and want to support, even donate, what's the best way they can support the Black Caucus Foundation of Michigan and the drug free youth in Detroit initiative? How can they best support?
If you find that there's something going on in your schools, in your community, or any event, I would say that one of the best ways that you can support is have tobacco-free, alcohol-free events. That's one of the ways you can support our cause. Change your environment. I always liken it to a fish bowl. And I said this at our meeting. We have the bowl with the water in it, and then we have the fish. So we're going into schools and we're working on the fish. But our coalition is working on the water. And so we need those both to marry each other, to work well with each other, because I can't put the fish and then throw you back in the dirty water. So we need them to change their habits at home, change the habits in the environment, make sure the laws are being enforced, but also, again, step up and join this team. Because as you see, we have a dynamic team.
Awesome. And are people able to make donations to the Black Caucus Foundation of Michigan? Or
if you were to look at our website, www.michiganblackcaucus.org, there is a donation ability to make donations to our nonprofit organization. Again, we go out into the communities and we have supplies and things that, we're always out there. And if you choose to give a monetary donation, that's a great thing. But this being the season of Lent, I'm not talking about religion, but I'm saying we also talk about giving tithes, but we also alms giving, and alms giving is doing more of. So do more talking about it. Do more out there beating the pavement. Be more monitoring what's going on.
All right. So those who are viewing and you believe in this cause, we definitely want to encourage you to support. You can give a financial donation. We have the website banner going across the screen, and we'll also include the email and website in our descriptions for those who will watch the replay. So I just want to thank everyone again for being on this special podcast, this roundtable, dealing with the harsh truth of the vaping epidemic. Thanks again. So that wraps up our podcast. Is there any other announcements, Ms. Johnson, before we close out tonight?
No other announcements other than all the great things we're about to do.
Any upcoming things that we should know about?
Well, next month, actually in the month of, I just was talking about it, April is Violence Prevention Month.
Okay.
And so we're not just talking about gun violence. We're talking about emotional, physical, domestic, socioeconomic. We're talking about all of those things. We're trying to put a campaign together. If you're with our faith-based leaders across the nation, we're trying to go from 50 states to do that. And also we're talking about in May, that's our prevention awareness and mental health awareness, or healthy living. I think that's right, Kyra, Ms. Thomas.
Yes, National Prevention Week is in May.
Yep.
But on March 26th through, I believe, the 31st is National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week. So know that we'll be addressing a lot every month as relates to substance use prevention, treatment, and recovery.
And if you want to look at DWIN, DWIHN.org, they have a calendar of events that go on throughout the state. You're more than welcome to look at that. And I said www, but we don't use wwws anymore. So it's MichiganBlackCaucus.org. I'm dating myself. But look at those and keep track of what we're doing out in the community. We're the Drug Free Youth in Detroit Coalition, and we thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys again.
Shots.
We just we celebrate
Speak
the
about
work
the
you guys are
prom.
doing in the community.
I'm sorry, Pratt.
And thank you
I
as
said you
well.
want to speak about the prom campaign.
Oh,
Oh,
there it is. The prom. What's saying, Charles? We are doing the prom campaign.
don't forget
Yes.
about the prom
Prom
campaign.
promise.
Promise. Listen, we are doing the prom promise. That's going on. That's you, Grant. Sean Grant. That's the prom promise. And that is being headed by two of our chair people, Gerald Campbell and Miss Sean Grant. And our prom promise is any of the schools. We have a school in the Detroit Public School Community District, and we're looking for other schools where we are collecting gently used or new formal wear, that is dresses, suits, and tuxedos. And those students that will be in receipt of that are taking a prom promise that where they will have a prom season free of alcohol, tobacco, and violence.
All
And
right.
so they will be doing that as well. And that we'll be collecting until March 1st, and then we'll start distributing after that.
Awesome. Awesome. So, folks who are viewing, don't forget about the prom promise. Gently used prom dresses, tuxedos. Let's support these young people. Absolutely. So, thanks again. That wraps our podcast up for tonight. Um, for those of you who are find value in what we're doing, I encourage you to please like and subscribe to our channel. Every week, we bring you difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. This was a special podcast roundtable dealing with the epidemic of vaping and how it's like a silent killer among our young people, particularly in the Metro Detroit area. So we brought this to you. And so I encourage you, please like and share this information with friends and family. The more we share, the more we can help save young people's lives. They're targeting our kids with these vapes and damaging their lungs. And we want our young people to live to their best self and to their full self and to live a long life the best they can, free from tobacco, violence, and have a community of support of love. So thanks again. Like and subscribe. And we'll see you next week with another broadcast of a Detroit Difference Maker from Metro Detroit. Thanks again. Have a good night.